It's time to get away from the hot desert summer and cool off in Alaska. We'll board the Royal Princess in Vancouver on a 7-day cruise to explore the magnificent scenery of Alaska and take in the grandeur of the Voyage of the Glaciers. Our first stop will be in Ketchikan to search for bears and other wildlife. Our next port of call will be the capital city of Juneau, where we'll get a close-up view of the famous Mendenhall Glacier. From there, we'll cruise overnight and tie up in the gold rush town of Skagway. We'll spend the next day cruising Glacier Bay National Park, and then set sail across the Gulf of Alaska to explore College Fjord. And finally, we'll tie up in Whittier, where we'll disembark the Royal Princess and catch our flights home. After flying to Vancouver, we'll join the Royal Princess at her berth in Canada Place, the premier cruise port in British Columbia. Welcome to Ketchikan, the salmon capital of the world. But the small city also claims the title of rain capital of the States. While it averages over 12 feet of rain each year, today is a nice day, and we'll take advantage of the good weather to search for bears.
Everyone's done.
Yeah. We better come see this. Don't keep up.
Our search for bears takes place in the Tongass Forest along a small stream. The stream is a major spawning area for local salmon, which in turn attract the bears. The bears are totally free to roam and forage wherever they please, but the area has numerous aerial wooden walkways that allow us to safely view the bears up close.
He's eating fish. Simba?
We're spending the morning exploring the trails around the Mendenhall Glacier. We started out at the Visitor Center and hiked 2 miles to Nugget Falls.
mushed from Point Barrow through a blizzard of snow. Been out prospecting for 2 years or so. Pulled into Fairbanks, the city was a boom. So I took a little stroll to the Red Dog Saloon. As I walked in the door, the music was clear. The prettiest voice I had heard in 2 years. The song she was singing made a man's blood run cold. When it's springtime in Alaska, it's 40 below.
It's another beautiful morning in Skagway, and we'll spend the entire day tracing the path the prospectors took during the Klondike Gold Rush in 1897. The White Pass Trail starts in Skagway, Alaska, and ends in Dawson City in the heart of the Yukon Territories. For 2 years, starting in 1897, over 100,000 prospectors followed this trail, carrying over 1 ton of supplies on foot up the steep mountain trail to Bennett Lake. If the prospectors left Skagway in the early spring, they were lucky to make it to Bennett Lake before the winter shut them down. They set up camp and spent the entire winter in Bennett's, building small boats to carry them and their supplies down the Yukon and Klondike rivers to the gold fields. The entire trip took them nearly 2 years. When they arrived in the Klondike, they found that all the good sites had already been claimed, so most of them lost everything and left the area penniless. Today, our expedition only takes us as far as Carcross in the Yukon. From this point, the prospectors had only completed 1/4 of their journey, but most of the remaining trip was completed rowing their boats down the rivers to Dawson City.
Innocent as I could be, I didn't know Lil was Big Ed's wife to be. He took out his knife and he gave it a throw. When it's springtime in Alaska, I'll be 6 feet below.
When it's springtime in Alaska, you'll be 6 feet below.
We traveled from Skagway to Carcross by bus. The highway doesn't follow the exact route the miners took, but the White Pass Railroad follows almost the exact route of the White Pass Trail. We boarded a train in Carcross and followed their route in reverse, stopping at several interesting sites along the way. Construction on the White Pass Railroad began in 1898 and was completed in late 1900, so the only way that the miners could travel from Skagway to Carcross was on foot. By the time of its completion, gold rush fever had died down, so the line struggled to exist until 1940. With the breakout of World War II, the line played a major role in transporting supplies to the Yukon to help build the Alaskan-Canadian Highway. Today it serves almost exclusively the tourist trade from the Skagway cruise terminals. Our route takes us along the east shore of Bennett Lake. During the rush, the prospectors would have rowed small boats the length of the lake until they reached the Yukon River. From there, they took that up to Dawson City.
Way up north to Alaska, way up north to Alaska, north to Alaska, go north for rushes on. North to Alaska, go north.
Our next stop will be in the tent city of Bennett. During the peak of the gold rush, the sourdough miners were met by Canadian Mounties and had to prove they had a minimum of 1 ton of supplies before they were allowed to continue on to the Yukon. Since their only mode of travel from Skagway was by foot, they had to make as many as 10 trips up the White Pass Trail. The miners stored their supplies on the south shore of Bennett Lake until they had everything they needed to complete their journey. Over 10,000 miners pitched tents and spent a long winter, eventually establishing the town of Bennett.
His team of huskies as he mushed on through the snow, with the northern lights a-running wild in the land.
This is what the town of Bennett looked like in 1898.
Was a mighty man in the year of 1901, where the river is.
The White Pass train depot was not completed until 1900, after the gold rush had ended. The only structure still remaining is the old church.
Is all way up north, way up north, north to Alaska, go north, the rush is on, north to Alaska.
This is Bennett Lake
Well, rather to be easy
in Yukon,
compared to walking. Isn't it?
Canada.
Oh, yeah.
George turned to Sam with his gold in his hand. Said, Sam, you're looking at a lonely, lonely man. I'd trade all the gold that's buried in this land for one small band of gold to place on sweet little Jenny's hand. 'Cause a man needs a woman to love him all the time. Remember, Sam, a true love is so hard to find. I'd build for my Jenny a honeymoon home, little old that old white mountain, just a little southeast of Nome, where the river is winding, big nuggets they're finding, north to Alaska, go north, the rush is on. North to Alaska, go north, the rush is on. Way up north, way up north, way up north, way up north.
Today is September 5th, and we'll spend it enjoying the grandeur of Glacier Bay. We'll make a brief stop at Bartlett Cove to pick up 3 park rangers who will describe what we are seeing and explain the history of the park. Glacier Bay was first proclaimed a U.S. National Monument in 1925 and was later enlarged and designated as Glacier Bay National Park in 1980. Current glaciers cover an area of 1,375 miles and accounts for 27% of the park area. Up until the early 1700s, the area was one single large glacier of solid ice. It has since retreated and has evolved into the largest protected water area in the world. The glaciers began retreating in the late 1700s, and by the early 1900s they had receded to their present-day positions. Over the past 100 years, the glaciers have fluctuated with small periodic advances and retreats, but overall their positions have remained relatively stable. Glacier Bay is popular as a cruise ship destination during the summer season. However, there are restrictions imposed by the National Park Service on the number of vessels that can operate in a day to 2 cruise ships and 3 much smaller tour boats.
This is the Johns Hopkins Glacier, and we're at the entrance to the inlet, actually. Fairweather Mountains in the background. And it's just a picture-perfect day. September 5th, 2019. Thursday.
Johns Hopkins Inlet is a major breeding area for harbor seals, and to protect the seal nursery, it's off limits to all ships until September 1st. As we get closer to the glacier, we can see numerous seals lying on the ice floes.
Oh, das ist ja Wahnsinn.
Oh man, that's spectacular.
Ja. Ich kann doch gleich zurück, denke ich mal. Oh. Jetzt kommt der andere hinterher.
So today is September 6th at about 11:30 in the morning, and we're at the Marjorie Glacier and the Grand Pacific Glacier. This is the Marjorie Glacier we're looking at right now. It's probably the prettiest one out here. And then the Grand Pacific Glacier is at the bow of the ship, and it's the one that's covered in dirt. And really what that is just all the rock scrapings that the glacier eroded as it was moving downhill, and then the ice that was mixed in with it melted as anyway, and that is why it's so dark, even though it's ice underneath that dirt. It's not nearly as pretty.
Some of you guys. There goes more on the right there. See that little dark area, Carol?
A little bit of ice.
Well, today is September 6th. The time is about 5:15 in the afternoon. It's the last day of the cruise. And we just entered Fjord. And we're going to be seeing several glaciers as we sail up the fjord, and then we'll be visiting the Harding Glacier at the top of the fjord. Right now we're looking at the Serpentine Glacier, and it is the very southernmost tidewater glacier in the fjord.
This is the Wellesley Glacier that we're looking at. And if we move to the right, we see the Vassar Glacier, the Bryn Mawr Glacier, and the Smith Glacier. And on the nose, on the bow, you can see the Harding Glacier. Little sea otter. The bigger one in the distance that we're looking at right now is the Bryn Mawr Glacier. The one right on the tip of the bridge is the Smith Glacier.
So these are all tidewater glaciers, along with the Harvard on the nose and the bow, and then the Yale Glacier. So we're looking at the Harding Glacier now. It's the main one, biggest one that actually formed the fjord. And moving over to the Yale Glacier. Both tidewater glaciers. That's a pretty one.
Yeah. I hear, there it goes, mine, look at mine. Yes!
Tell me you got that.
There it goes! I called it. It's all falling over.